AI can help you, but it cannot read your mind or your computer's mind in real time, at least not yet. I've seen a ton of videos showing people how to build apps quickly using AI tools, but usually those are all locally run. What about deploying them actually into production onto the web so that people can use this stuff? One of the first things that I like to do when I'm building a new product is get my dev environment set up, get my deployment pipeline set up, because what I hate doing is spending all of this time going from 0 to 1 locally, working on all this cool functionality, and then hitting this wall where it's like, ah, shoot, I need to deploy this thing, and I haven't set up any of that config, any of that architecture to actually deploy and host this thing in production. So that's what we're doing today. We are setting up our development environments. Goal is to get local staging, production environment set up, as well as kind of like a basic hello world app on each of them that involves a database. Essentially what I'm going to do is pop this prompt that I just wrote over into o1-preview so it can write kind of a custom tutorial for me that considers exactly my goals, exactly my tech stack, and the tools that I'm using, as well as some guidelines that I've given it. Oops, typo. And before I do that, if you didn't watch part 1 already, I used AI assistants to help me do product discovery on this concept, which is this app called TLDR that I'm building. It's a social read it later product that emails you a summary of articles tomorrow. All right, pasting my prompt in here, and let's let o1-preview get to work thinking for us and writing a custom blog article tutorial that I can use to set up exactly what I want to set up. So this is the tech stack that I gave it. I said I'm using React, Express, Postgres, hosting on Heroku, using Git and .env for environment variables. Just kind of some basic instructions, right? Okay, so now my goal is to go through this tutorial and follow it and confirm that it actually works. Part 1 is setting up local dev environment. Awesome. This is looking really detailed. Yes, yes, yes. Part 2 is setting up staging environment. Perfect. Part 3 is setting up prod environment. I love it. Okay, and then it's also giving me some additional steps, versioning with Git and GitHub. I would have assumed it already had that set up by now, but whatever. .env, okay. First thing it wants me to do is install Node. I actually already have that. I just confirmed that over here. Next, it wants me to install Postgres, but it wants me to use Homebrew to install it. I actually don't have Homebrew, so let me copy this code and install Homebrew really quick. Always test after you make an update. I just ran which brew and it says brew not found. You got to read the next steps. Brew is not in my path yet, so my computer doesn't know how to find it. AI can help you, but it cannot read your mind or your computer's mind in real time, at least not yet. Brew install Postgres, sweet. Let's go ahead and fire up Postgres, see if it's running. Cool, looks like we got Postgres running in the background, very nice. It wants me to install Git next, I already have that, let's move on. Now we're making our project directory and initializing a Git repository in that directory. Now we're creating a backend directory by creating a folder, cding into it, and then running npm init-y. It's a little different than how I've done it in the past, so I'm kind of curious to see what results. Installing 3 dependencies, Express, Postgres, package, and .env. Aha, now we're creating our first file that we are going to drop code into. So I just added an index.js file into the backend folder. All right, let me pop this code into the index.js file. I love the helpful comments here. This is so helpful. By the way, I do always read the code before I run it. I'm not going to step through it line by line on this video. I'll probably edit that stuff out for time's sake. But I mention that because I see a lot of videos of people using AI to generate code for them, and they don't seem to read the code. Always read the code, test it locally first, generally understand what it's doing. Okay, cool. I just added some scripts to package.json. I just added a dependency, nodemon, and created a database. Now let's shift gears and set up the front end with React and Material. Okay, we're using npx create React app and calling the folder front end. That's where we're installing everything. Okay, sweet. I installed some dependencies, including Material. I set up a proxy for API calls. Now we get to actually test it. Let's run npm start to see if this front end fires up. Hey, look at that. We got React running. Moving on, let's connect the front end to the back end. By the way, I must say I rather like this file directory that it set up for me. There's a root directory, which I named TLDR, and then it's just very simply a backend folder and a front end folder. That's it, just two folders. It's very simple, very straightforward. Okay, it's having me add another endpoint at /API/message for connecting the front end to the back end. Okay, now I'm replacing my entire app.js file on the front end with the code we see here on the left. It's pulling in React and it's calling out to that endpoint that we just set up. Run both servers concurrently. We have to install concurrently for this. I have to call this out really quick because one of the things that I sometimes get confused about when I'm going through tutorials online is where do I install my dependencies? And I really, really appreciate this helper text right here. Let me zoom in and make it really big for you. It says, in the root directory, install this dependency. Thank you so much, o1-preview, for adding that little bit of copy. This is a little odd. It had me just install concurrently, which created a package.json file for me. And then it says create a package.json in the root directory with the following content. It does have concurrently listed in here, so that's good. It's not asking me to overwrite the installation of concurrently, but it is a little bit odd. It's a kind of a weird order of operations, but it's okay. I figured it out. Okay, now here's the big test. I'm about to start both the front end and the back end concurrently, and we will see if I get that helpful message from the API call that says hello from Express. And I did not. I got uncaught runtime errors. Let me dig into this. Let's figure out what's going on. Okay, looks like the error happened when it was trying to start the back end. And here's a helpful message right here. Address already in use, port 5000. So let me figure out how to close that down. Hey GPT, I'm trying to start my Express app and I just got an error that's saying something is already running on port 5000. How do I figure out what's running on 5000 and how do I stop it from running?
That port 5000 already in use error can be annoying.
Okay. It's actually just easier to read instead of seeing what it's saying to me. LSOF-I5000. Okay, cool. And then whatever it is, I need to kill it. This looks familiar. I have done this before. Kill PID 638. Okay, let's try this again. I'm going to run npm start and see if my thing starts up. GPT-4o, help me debug. This is the error I'm getting. This is the relevant snippet from the back end. This is the relevant snippet from the front end. Okay, I'm logged into Heroku. Let's go ahead and create the Heroku apps for staging. I'm going to rename this to TLDR backend staging. Go ahead and create that app. Sweet, looks like it worked. Create the front end staging app. Add Postgres to the backend staging app. Oops, got an error. Yeah, so it's saying it couldn't find the add-on name or the plan name, HobbyDev. I encounter this actually somewhat frequently when I have AI generate tutorials for me, and that's that they're probably referring to old documentation. So let me try this out with 4.0 and see if we can get a different result. Here's the error message. How do I fix this? Oh, I found our answer. As of November 28th, 2022, Heroku is no longer offering free dynos, hobby dev. It's been a little while since I've used Heroku. I remember when there was free plans, so I'm going to have to use a paid plan. Okay, let's try this again with what should be a valid plan name. And aha, looks like it worked. Okay, next step, we're deploying back into Heroku. Great. It wants me to add a proc file. So this is really interesting, actually. I just looked closer into this. These are very poor instructions. So what I'm finding is that while most of the instructions o1-preview is giving me are quite good, I think this is very poor instructions because it says add a proc file in the backend directory, and then it has a code snippet. I'm not supposed to run this code. That's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to create a file called proc file and then add this code to that file. The way I figured that out is I literally took a screenshot of this. I popped it into GPT-4o and I said, what the hell does this mean? And it gave me much better instructions. So that's one thing that I do while I'm going through these sort of AI generated tutorials is although they're generally very good, sometimes you run into some wonky instructions and you can just use the AI to check itself. Okay, I got my proc file added. Let's go ahead and commit our changes. Okay, now we're going to push to Heroku, but this is really interesting because I just noticed another error in o1-preview's output. It's having me use git subtree, which is really cool. I just looked it up. I've never used it before. Really sweet git command. So I'm excited about that. But Look at this. It says backend, or it's pushing the backend directory to Heroku backend staging. That's the name of the Heroku app right here. That app doesn't exist. And it's not even the same name that it told me to use up here, right? So it's getting a little bit confused. It's getting a little bit lazy. You got to check the code that the AI tells you to use. Okay, let's push this up to Heroku one more time. Okay. I just successfully pushed up to Heroku. I pushed the backend up to Heroku. This command was just wrong, okay? It was close, but it was wrong. And I'm not going to go into all the detail. Basically, I needed to set a remote Git, remote repository in my local Git, and then change the name of this to match that remote. But it's, again, I think I would frame it as AI gets you 80% of the way there, which is super helpful, but that last 20%, sometimes you got to fill it in yourself, okay? All right, now let's work on deploying the front end to Heroku. Okay, let's get that front end pushed up to Heroku. I got that all sorted out now, so it is pushing up successfully. Very nice. Okay, I have pushed everything up to Heroku, front end and back end, and now we get to do the really fun step and test it out. So I'm looking at my Heroku portal here, my Heroku dashboard. So this is the staging app. I'm going to open this. We should see a message that says something like hello from, boom, there you go. Hello from Express right there. Okay, cool. So the back end appears to be working. Let's open up the front end. We should basically see the same message. I think it's styled a little bit differently. Hello from Express. Yes, we are rocking and rolling, y'all. Here we go. We're in the home stretch here, part 3, setting up the production environment. This, I believe, should be relatively straightforward because we've done all the work leading up to being able to have a production environment. It's working on staging. It should, at this point in time, be pretty straightforward to get it to be working on prod, but I've been wrong before. Okay, let's create both of our front end and back end apps on Heroku for the production environment. Go ahead and add Postgres to the backend app. We do have to add our environment variables within Heroku itself. GPT o1-preview did not tell me to do that. And well, it kind of tried to tell me to do that, but it didn't tell me very well. So that's one thing it missed, but we do have to do that. We also have to set up our Git remotes, which I have all right here. There's a bunch of them now. We need 2 for staging, 2 for prod, basically a front end and back end for staging and a front end and back end for prod. That's another thing that o1-preview did not tell me to do, so I had to fill in that gap. Okay, now we can start deploying our back end and front end to production, which is happening here. Very cool. Can't wait to test it. Okay, looks like this is done. Let's load this bad boy up. Okay, we are on the back end. So that is working on prod. Yes, very nice. Let's test the front end. This one's the trickier one. And it is working. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, this may not seem very exciting to anyone who's watching, but seeing these words display on this browser after all of this work today, that is a good feeling, my friends. I think this is where I will wrap it up. GPT-o1 offers a couple extra steps if we want. Versioning with Git and GitHub, cool. I'm going to do that eventually. Chrome extension setup, we'll get to that later. But for now, I am very satisfied with having a local environment that's working, a staging environment that's working, and a production environment that's working. Yes, we can do a lot from here. Thanks for checking this out. Next session, I think, is going to be even more interesting because we're going to start building real functionality and putting that on the web. Maybe by the third session, you'll even be able to play around with something. I can't wait to get there. Thanks so much for watching and subscribe to follow the series. Catch you later. Peace.